When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. I got a good show for you today. I'm bringing on Josh. He's from the Pacific Northwest. I think he's in Washington State. He made a post on Instagram about looking to come onto a podcast because he does maps and data visualizations relating to Bigfoot encounters in North America. And he does field research. He's got a YouTube channel, Squatchin with Josh, as well as his Instagram page. And I find it intriguing. I don't know what kind of stories he might have. I just basically reached out to him, threw the offer out there. He was down for it, so we lined up a time to talk. So you'll be learning along with me. It's a lot of fun. I like it that way. You know, I like to not feel rehearsed or anything like that. It's enjoyable. While we wait for him to join the show, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to Sarah Cooper from the American Snallygaster Museum in Maryland. We met up on Instagram also. I had her on the show. She's going to be on a future episode, or she was probably already on a past episode by the time you hear this. She told the whole history of the Snallygaster. You know, we sent each other a couple of swag packs. You know, I sent her a few things. So she sent me this killer cup here. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's a cryptid coffee cup. Got it all personalized with a bunch of West Virginia cryptids and cryptids from everywhere else too. You know, there's the Fresno Nightcrawler, and there's even a jackalope on there. You know, and she personalized it with my favorite cryptid, Bigfoot. So it's a lot of fun. So thank you, Sarah, for that. And you guys should really go check her out. She also is starting up her own podcast. So go check out her Instagram and get links to all that, or go back to our show notes and I should have some links for you on there. So give me just a second and we'll get Josh on the show.
So my name is Josh, and I'm based out of Portland, Oregon, kind of the Pacific Northwest. And, you know, I think like a lot of people who are interested in Bigfoot and the paranormal and cryptozoology, my interest kind of started with a lot of the classic TV shows, like In Search Of, that I watched when I was a kid. And those things just captured my imagination. So I started loving that stuff when I was a kid, and I started with the TV shows, and then I like read every book I could get my hands on. Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, aliens, ancient aliens, and so forth, which it's funny because although I don't really like the ancient aliens theory now, it kind of led me to my actual career in a way, because it sparked an interest in archaeology, which ended up being the beginning of my actual job.
Wow.
But becoming an actual archaeologist, it did become hard to continue to believe any of that ancient alien stuff. But anyway, so I have always had an interest in cryptids and cryptozoology and the paranormal ever since a young age. And as I grew older, my career kind of brought me into the natural sciences. I was an archaeologist, field archaeologist for many years, and then I transitioned into being a GIS professional, working with wetlands and other natural phenomena, and doing a lot of field work with that and with the archaeology. So I just spent a lot of time in the woods for my professional career. And it's interesting because it's kind of like every time I was out in the woods for work, obviously I'd be doing my job and investigating the natural or human phenomena we were supposed to be out there investigating. But in the back of my mind, I was doing a little bit of squatching too.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking for, footprints or stick structures or anything like that. So that's kind of where I've come to where I'm at today, trying to spread the word about this Bigfoot mapping project I'm kind of working on as a side project. And so what I'm doing is I work with GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems, and it's a way to tie data to geography. And I was sitting at work and I'm thinking, this is a way that biologists, real biologists, as opposed to cryptozoologists, and I'm not trying to throw shade on cryptozoologists,
Right.
but this is a way that biologists actually use to study known species or to look for species that they think actually exist. So I'm thinking, well, I have expertise in this area and I have an interest in cryptids. Maybe I can use this to look into Bigfoot. So, but my thought was then where can I get a data set? So I need the raw data. Basically, what I mean by that is GPS points of Bigfoot sightings.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first thought was, well, this may not work, but I'll just email Cliff Brockman from Finding Bigfoot, because I know that he is he's a data oriented person. If you listen to him talk.
Oh yeah.
And I thought he might have collected this information himself or have be able to point me to where I could find it. And I was like, this is out of the blue. I doubt he'll email me back, but he did. So I have to give him credit. It was very nice of him. And it just briefly, he pointed me to a place online where I could download a pretty large data set that covers most of North America with GPS points for Bigfoot sightings. So I downloaded that to my computer and I was kind of off and running, making these maps where I can compare Bigfoot sightings to other natural phenomena and in a way that is the same as biologists would use to study a known species. So that's kind of what I've been trying to make my contribution to the Bigfoot community.
Wow. That is so cool, man. I absolutely love that. And we'll get into my area because, we're so self-centered here. And we're like, well, what about me? What about me? But yeah. So tell me, what have you found?
Well, since it's working with raw data, and sometimes when you lay data out, sometimes it's disappointing. Sometimes it doesn't tell you anything, or sometimes it tells you what you don't want to hear.
Right.
But other times it does have some pretty interesting things to say. And so I have whenever I have been coming on a couple podcasts, I'll have some of my more interesting maps at hand and ones that I think kind of have interesting things to say possibly about Sasquatch behavior.
Okay.
If Sasquatches exist, I have a couple maps that I think have some interesting insights into their behavior.
Okay.
So one of my favorites, and I do have to give Cliff Barrickman credit again, because this was his idea. So, but I compared Bigfoot sightings to salmon streams in Pierce County, Washington. So Pierce County, Washington is in the foothills of Mount Rainier. So that's classic Bigfoot area. It's a real, it's kind of a hot spot. So that's why I chose that area. And salmon streams, because, I would think a lot of Bigfoot researchers would kind of assume that Bigfoots would eat salmon. So I thought, well, I'll test that hypothesis. So I tried to get really detailed. So I took only the Bigfoot sightings that occurred in summer and fall, because that's the times of year when the salmon run in Pierce County. And it turns out that 42% of those sightings occurred within 1 mile of a salmon stream. And I thought that was a pretty significant correlation. So to
Yeah.
me, that indicates if Bigfoots do exist, they are taking advantage of those salmon runs for a food source.
Yeah.
42%, you know, obviously that's not 90%, but as I've been going through this data, that's a really high level of correlation.
I imagine it would be. And that's going within 1 mile
Yeah,
and within 1 mile of a salmon stream during that time period that people are witnessing.
yes. So
So there's that whole X factor of, is there someone there to see it?
yes, so there could be a lot more Bigfoots availing themselves of those streams potentially that people aren't seeing.
Right.
So that's one that I thought was really interesting. And sorry, this is where the editing might come in. I'm going to scroll down to I'm scrolling through my Twitter here to find one of my other maps that I thought.
Can you pull up the maps? Can you do like a share screen or something? Let me see the map.
Oh, yeah, I can.
I would love that.
Let's see. Oh, you've disabled screen sharing.
Well, let me fix that. How about now?
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so this is one of my other maps that I thought was really good. And this is, can you see it?
Yeah, Florida.
Yeah, so this is Bigfoot sightings by proximity to traffic volume in Florida. And I thought this one, first of all, this one is a 3-factor map. So it's the Bigfoot sightings and roads, but then also how much traffic is on the roads. And I thought this one was really interesting because, and now, sorry, I got to go back because I got to scroll down to where I have the statistics for that one written out.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good, brother.
I'm glad you can edit.
I just wanted to get my eyes on that map.
I'll pop it back up.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
I definitely think that this one, okay, here we go. So I definitely think that this map of Florida Bigfoot sightings by proximity to the traffic volume could potentially say a strong message about Bigfoot behavior that confirms what people already think about Bigfoot behavior, which is, that's always something I'm interested in with these maps. Like, does the data confirm what people kind of assume about Bigfoots? And in this case, I kind of think it does. So only 8 of the 329 sightings in Florida, so 2%, occurred within a mile of a high traffic road. So to me, that confirms Bigfoots tend to try to avoid people.
Yeah.
But 79% occurred within 1 mile of a low traffic road or farther than a mile from any road. So again, the majority of the sightings are away from most of the human activity.
Right. Yeah, that
The
would
biggest category of the sightings occurred. So 51% of the sightings did occur within 1 mile of a low traffic road. And now this is interesting because I've received some criticism from people with a more skeptical mindset saying, well, you know, this data can't say as much about Bigfoot behavior because it's dependent on people. You know, each point is only where a person saw Bigfoot. So it's hard to draw any conclusions about the Bigfoot behavior from that because it's only the times when Bigfoots and people cross paths, in theory. But because this map to me shows that since 51% of the sightings occurred within 1 mile of a low traffic road, it shows that while the data is biased towards, you know, human and Bigfoot interaction, that 51% is still a big correlation with the lowest traffic roads. And so I still think that this map is able to say, well, if Bigfoots exist, this data shows that they strenuously try to avoid areas of high human activity.
Yeah.
So I thought this was one of my more interesting maps.
Yeah.
And sorry, you might have to edit that section pretty heavily. I was a little stumbly there.
No, you're good. You're good. I agree with you. If it was a, you know, what goes into your point is if it was where Bigfoot didn't care whether or not it was around people, then the high traffic area, of course, would have a higher number of sightings because there's more people there to see it and report it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You know, so they're obviously avoiding high traffic areas, you know, and going to the more sparsely populated areas to do their maneuvering and or whatever they need to do. Josh, I'm so impressed by what you're doing, man. This is
thank you.
this is cool. Going back to archaeology, just for a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because like I said, we haven't really spoken before about thoughts and theories and all that kind of shit. I don't know where you stand, like as far as I think I know. I think I know where you stand with whether or not, you know, Bigfoot is a relic hominid or, you know, a spiritual being or whatever, or anything in between, you know. But from an archaeologist's standpoint, do you see any relation to the from your field research, any relation to Sasquatch habitat, if you would, or anything that they may leave behind, any kind of signs? Is there any relation between that and what you would have learned from primitive cultures? Like, is there any like telltale sign, like these are an intelligent race of something or someone, based off of what you've learned about, you know, earlier cultures?
Okay, well, for me, I'll say I stick to the evidence, and you know, so what I'll say is, I don't think so. I've never seen, you know, there's very few reports where Bigfoots use tools,
Right.
Or make fires, or build any structure beyond like leaning trees next to each other.
Right.
There is, you know, some people talk about them potentially having a language, and there is the Sierra Sounds tape, which, as an aside, I love that recording, almost just from an artistic standpoint. It's so cool sounding.
Yeah.
But what I'll say about what Bigfoot is that from the information I have access to, it's a hairy bipedal creature that people sometimes are able to see. And that's all I can say, because that's all we know.
Right.
So is it a relic hominid? Is it a spiritual being? I leave that speculation up to other people, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'll take that. You know, you're just here for the facts. You know, you're like Joe Friday, just the facts, man. You know.
Yes, exactly. But as far as being like an ancient culture, like a hunter-gatherer culture, I don't think so. To me, it's more like from what I see in the record of reports and sightings and sort of the oral tradition, to me, it's more like an animal.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I'll take that. I appreciate that. Like an undiscovered primate.
Again, I can't come down too hard on that, because I like I said, I leave the speculation to others, but yeah, I don't see it having what I would call cultural traits.
Okay.
That you would ascribe to humans.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I wanted to ask because, you know, you have, I'm sure, a wealth more knowledge than myself or most others as far as, you know, cultures, you know, what you're looking for from being an archaeologist. And I didn't know if there was a common trend between sightings and, you know, habitat or habituations, you know, in different pockets across America or the world that were common enough to make it like a cultural thing for a Bigfoot species, or race or whatever. So
Well,
yeah, I like it.
From what I see, and this could be, we say human beings, and we're human beings, so we have a human-centric point of view.
Right.
We say human beings have cultures, and we say animals have behaviors.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But human beings are animals, and our cultures are behaviors. So at some point, these categories all break down.
Yeah.
But
I like that.
to me, I have not seen anything in the record of reports that I've heard or read or evidence, the unfortunately scarce amount of hard evidence there is about Bigfoot that indicates they have anything that we would call close to a sort of a human culture. To me, that doesn't appear to be there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate that insight, because I don't often get to talk to somebody that's in the field of archaeology. So I appreciate it. All right, let's get back to your maps.
Okay.
How many states have you covered doing this?
Let me see. You know what? Let me look on my Instagram here, because I have them more lined up better. I don't have to scroll through Twitter, as it's less confusing that way. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. And while you're doing that, I'll just I'll pick your brain a little bit more about just in your day job. You said and what you're doing with how it relates to natural phenomena. What kind of natural phenomenon are you out there checking out?
Well, so right now I work with wetlands right now.
Okay.
So I work with using computer mapping to track how wetlands change over time.
Wow. So you're doing like historical maps and.
Yeah, I'll look at historical maps and then try to determine new statuses.
Yeah.
And compare.
Yeah. Okay, so that would make sense with this map here. You're probably pretty intimately familiar with the coasts of Florida and Louisiana and all that, Mississippi.
I've never done anything in Mississippi, but I have done plenty of work actually on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
Of Florida and Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change there.
Yeah, I guess so. I lived in Louisiana for 6 years. We got into, that's where I actually got started on ghost hunting. I created the group Bump, for the believers of the unexplained monsters and paranormal. It was me and a few Air Force buddies. We got together and we'd go, scare ourselves to death by going to empty houses or cemeteries and just, trying to be like Taps, of the old ghost hunters.
Yeah, totally.
we were doing that kind of stuff, man. It never really had anything go on because it's not like it's seen on TV. Most of the time you go out and nothing's going on.
They kind of juice it up on those TV shows, don't they?
Oh yeah. They make it like every time they go out, this crazy shit's happening. But no, it's not. Every time you go out, you're talking to yourself in the woods,
Louisiana is such a cool state, though, for like the creepy stuff. You've got the Rougarou legend, and people see Bigfoots there, and there's all the ghosts and sort of, I guess,
voodoo,
cultural voodoo legends. Yeah.
Yes.
And like those above ground cemeteries that are like the one that they have in the movie Easy Rider. So cool looking and creepy. Yeah.
Like when I went down, I only went to New Orleans once. But the rest of the time I was up by Shreveport.
Okay, yeah.
But man, if you go down to New Orleans, it just feels different there. Like the sun goes down and you're like, oh man. It's like you can feel there's something in the air.
It's such an old city.
Yeah.
A lot of history and yeah.
Yeah.
I've only been there once or twice, but it's very cool.
Yeah. I loved it down there. But it's definitely a place to keep your eyes open.
For sure.
All right.
So back to your question, I've covered, I think, 16 states so
Wow.
far. And I make pretty much each map is state level. Although I'm working on one right now, and this is for fans of the woo aspect.
Okay.
That's covers all of America, and I'm doing Bigfoot sightings along the 33rd parallel.
Oh,
So, you know, the 33rd parallel is supposed to have some kind of magnetic power, like you've heard about the ley lines.
yep.
So I'm working on that one. That'll cover, well, it's the southern part of America. So
Yeah.
Southern California through Texas. And, you know, East Texas, Texarkana is a real Bigfoot hotspot. And that 33rd parallel goes right through there. So I'm finding that to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, man. You know, I've heard similar about the 38th parallel.
Okay.
Because I guess it runs, you know, globally. I think it runs through Korea, maybe.
Huh.
And there was some kind of thing about high strangeness along the 38th parallel. So that's cool. But the 33rd, yeah, I imagine down there in the south. Yeah, man, I love this. I'm trying to write notes at the same time as I'm talking to you. I love this stuff. Are you going to put out a book or anything about this, Josh? Are you going to compile it?
You know, I've thought about that. Right now, I don't have a lot of time to work on something of that scope. But you know, I kind of make the maps and write up the little statistical summaries. Sorry.
No, you're good.
In my spare time, like I'll be working and I'll take a little 15-minute break and kind of work on one of these maps. And you know, I would love to compile them into a book, like maybe once I get more states done. And I won't say I could do all 50, because there's some states that don't really have a lot of Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah.
And it might not be that interesting for all 50 states.
Right.
But
I get that.
you know, I don't know about Hawaii, for instance.
Right.
But or like, you know, and I'm gonna make some listener angry, but you know, or like Kansas or something. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But
Right.
There's certainly more states on my list. For instance, as we discussed before we started recording, my home state and your home state of West Virginia,
Right.
I haven't done a map for that yet. And West Virginia is a great Squatchin state.
Yes.
I love the wilderness in West Virginia. You know, do you know the Canaan Valley?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite places in the whole of America to go out in the woods, and dolly sods and just that area. It's a very special place. And I'd love, you know, West Virginia Bigfoot map is probably close to next on my list. So
Awesome. Awesome. I hope so.
but generally speaking, yes, I would love to make a book of this stuff. That would be so much fun.
Yeah. Because you got a lot of information in here. And I think it would be a service to the whole community, you know, the whole Bigfoot and, you know, the research community to have something like this on hand. I think this is wonderful.
Well, you kind of inspired me, honestly, by asking that question. Like maybe I'm going to think about that a little harder now.
Well, I hope you do, man. I hope you do, because I will be in line to buy a book because I can't get enough of this stuff. All right.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah,
Because, you know, this is just a little side project for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that you'd be interested and other, you know, Bigfoot people would be interested, just I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And I mean it wholeheartedly. I think this is something that I haven't seen before. And you know, if you're into Bigfoot, most of the time it's the same old thing, you know, from people that, you know, and not knocking them. I mean, people don't have experiences every day, but you'll see, you know, the same rinse and repeat reports by somebody that had an experience 20, 30 years ago, and you'll hear them and you'll hear their take on every single channel you listen to, on every special. And this is something different. This is something fresh.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I really like it, man.
speaking of, experiences, I have to say I haven't had one myself, despite the amount of time I've spent, in remote areas. The closest thing I've had is like while I've been out in the woods and in different remote wilderness areas, is I've seen a lot of the stick structures in different places. And if you want my real opinion, I'm not 100% convinced that those are always or ever really evidence of Bigfoots, but I'm open to the possibility. But I just bring that up to say that's the only thing that I've ever personally experienced.
Yeah.
But I've seen plenty of those. Those are out there in the woods. If you go looking for those, you will find them.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think a lot of times you'll find what you want to find.
And it could be that you find 10 of those and one of them was made by a Bigfoot. Or it could be that none of them were. It could be that all of them were. I don't know. And I'm not going to act like I do.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I tend to agree with you. I think there's areas like if you find tracks and you find, the cross, the X crosses over there and they're 25 feet tall and the trees are upside down and stuck into the ground, maybe that's a Bigfoot, but if you find a couple of twigs that happen to have, crisscrossed on the side of a path, on a windy day, people find what they want to see,
It's true.
Yeah.
And, people, I often hear researchers or whatever on podcasts say,
I think you froze up on me.
and it's like, well, buddy, you were out there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Sometimes I do think that there's a little bit of that seeing what you want to see with some of those things. But again, I'm not going to act like I know for sure.
Yeah. We won't know unless we're there, All right, Josh. So what other map do you want to show today, if you don't mind?
Okay, well, since your podcast seems to cover a lot of different paranormal topics,
Yes.
I thought I would show you one that has Bigfoots and UFOs on the same map.
Hell yeah.
If you're interested in that.
Yeah, man.
Because it turns out that UFO GPS data is actually easier to find than Bigfoot data. I think UFO people are a little bit maybe more sometimes maybe they're a little more nerdy, more technologically inclined in some ways as far as the GPS points go. I don't know.
Yeah,
this database was easy to find.
They're very data oriented, it seems like. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I always like to give credit for where I get these ideas. So do you know the Small Town Monsters movies?
Very well. Yes.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I love those movies. Partly it's because each one, like I'm a geographer. I deal with maps and places. And those movies are so cool because each one is tied to a very specific place.
Yes.
It's part of why I love them so much. I mean, obviously, a lot of them are very West Virginia oriented.
Yeah, they are.
They
are. There's a lot of weird in West Virginia, man. I tell you.
But so this map was inspired by their movie Invasion on Chestnut Ridge and the research of Stan Gordon.
Yep.
Who they basically, I think, based that movie mostly on his report compilations.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a map of Pennsylvania and I did UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And can you see the map?
Yeah, I do.
So as you can see, the big green dots are Bigfoot sightings within 1 mile of a UFO sighting.
Yeah.
Weirdly, there's a couple over close to Philadelphia, which I don't know how to explain that. But the vast majority of connected Bigfoot and UFO sightings, as you can see here, and I can get you the number on that in a second, are in the Chestnut Ridge area in southwestern Pennsylvania. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Kind kind of goes along with what Stan Gordon says and with what Small Town Monsters covered in that documentary, which again, I highly recommend all their documentaries. So I think
yeah.
they're making some of the best cryptid movies going right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, if I could get Seth Breedlove on here just to sing his praises a few times to him, you know, I think that, man, they are amazing. I love those documentaries.
I agree. I've written a couple emails to them just to say, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I think that they make a little bit more. They put a little bit more, I think, intelligence towards the topic than some documentarians do.
Yep. You can tell they put the work in, and I saw
and
that
definitely passion as well.
Yes, and he's following you on Instagram, by the way. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did, yeah. I think it's probably because I have emailed him a couple times.
Yeah, I really like this correlation here, man, with the UFOs and the Bigfoot. Those aren't necessarily the most densely populated areas. I know they are it is in Philadelphia, but around the Chestnut Ridge area, that's not necessarily the biggest population of Pennsylvanians,
No, it's almost like coal country. Back in
you're
in
deep
the
in the
early
mountains.
days of my career as an archaeologist, I did a little work in that area, and it is pretty sparsely populated. Yeah, it's small towns.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know if maybe light pollution has something to do with UFO sightings. The less it's in your way, the easier it might be to see what's in the skies. And people, maybe if they're of a more outdoorsy nature, maybe they're having more Bigfoot sightings.
Well, the Stan Gordon, I believe Stan Gordon's hypothesis is that Bigfoots are aliens.
Yeah.
And again, like I said earlier, I won't. I leave speculation up to other people, but that's very interesting.
It is interesting.
I think that's at least fun to think about.
Yeah. I don't know where I stand on that. I mean, I can't say one way or the other, yes or no, about anything, because over the last almost year of doing this show, I feel dumber than when I started. I thought I had a few answers, but now I don't know anything about this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad is a little bit of that camp, about what Bigfoot is. But he's more over the years, the more stuff my dad listens to and watches and pays attention to, I think he's going more into the ancient aliens theory, and he can tie Bigfoot right in there with it when you talk to him about it. But
well, I will say this: if Bigfoots were aliens and they could cloak like the Predator and beam up to their spaceships and so on and so forth, like some people say,
yeah,
that would actually explain so much.
Yes. Yeah, it would answer everything.
It would.
Like, what did you
and again,
find?
I want to emphasize, I'm not saying that's what I think, or that's a conclusion I've drawn from my maps.
Right.
I'm just saying that would really answer all the questions if it was true.
It would. It would answer everything, because you could just say alien, and it would be like, oh, okay, I can't really argue that because we don't know.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on aliens and UFOs and all that? Because we have disclosure coming, supposedly by the 1st of June. There was some kind of agreement that Congress had.
I'll say this: I know a lot less about UFOs. I've done a lot less research and thinking about UFOs than I have about Bigfoot. So I'm no expert. Not even that I'm an expert on Bigfoot, because how can you be? But as far as UFOs, I mean, obviously, I think I forget the name of the theory. There's some scientist that says basically the universe is it's infinite. So I do believe there's life, out there. Do I know for sure that they've contacted us or that they look like the Greys or the lizard aliens that people talk about?
Right.
I don't know for sure. I tend to think that a lot of UFO sightings this is just my personal opinion. I'm going to assume that most of them are just like experimental airplanes or something that the military is testing out. That seems to me like the most logical explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as the government doing disclosure, I guess I'm, you just got to wait and see till they. I mean, let me ask you this: what would it take? What would they have to show for us all to really believe it?
Right. And
for it to make that impact.
What can you believe that could be shown? Because there's
like
always
a gray alien standing at the podium next to the president on a press conference. I mean, what are they going to do?
Right.
So I don't know for sure about this disclosure. I just don't know. It's not on the top of my research list, to be honest.
Yeah.
I kind of stick to Bigfoot.
I get that. And you're right. What would it take? Because no matter what, somebody's going to be like, I don't trust them. They're lying. And then and people that believe, they already believe, so I don't know how far disclosure is going to get any of us, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, is there anything else that you want to show us or talk about? Because the way I do this now, now that I started a Patreon and a YouTube channel, I'm trying to grow as far as social media goes. This video will be available. There'll be clips of it I'm going to put on YouTube, and there'll be the full length show on Patreon. Is there anything that you would like for people to see? Anything else?
Well, I'll tell you this. You're welcome to go on my Twitter, and you can download any of my maps and share them on any of your social media if you find one that you like.
Yeah.
As long as you tag me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you're welcome to do that. And anyone that sees this, and this is something I've been saying, anyone that sees this, if you're a Bigfoot researcher, if you go out in the field, I encourage you to take a GPS point when you think you've found Bigfoot evidence, or if you see a Bigfoot. And I recommend there's an app for your cell phone called Avenza Maps. It's free, and it lets you make GPS maps and take GPS points. You can use that as kind of a research tool.
And that's Avenza Maps?
Yeah, Avenza.
Okay.
You can use that as a research tool. And if you do that, I'd love it if you sent the GPS point to me, and it can be anonymous. I'm not going to attach your name to it, but I'll add it to the date. And, you can send me other information like what you found or what kind of sighting it was, etc. And I'll add it to the database I have so that my database is kind of a living thing.
Oh, wow.
And you could send it to me at Twitter or Instagram. And my handle on both of those is at PNW Bigfoot Maps. But on Instagram, it has underscores between the words.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So my DMs are open on both those. That's how to get in touch with me. I welcome any GPS points people are able to collect and send to me if you can figure out how to do that. And just follow me on those accounts if you want to see more maps. I should be making them, and also hopefully posting some photos and stuff from my own research here as the pandemic dies down. I've had to be very careful and pretty much not go out hardly at all with the pandemic because we've been sort of starting a family.
Oh, wow. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. But as I get vaccinated and my family gets vaccinated, I'll hopefully be doing some more of my own research. And I'm a bit more of a desk jockey as far as work's concerned now.
Yeah.
So I have to field research on my own time, but I'm hoping to get out there in the field here in the springtime as the pandemic dies down. And so if you follow me on the social medias, you can see more maps and photos and videos from my own research.
Awesome. And I wish you the best of luck with this. I know in my area, if you go to like BFRO's website and look in their database, West Virginia doesn't look like it's had a ton of Bigfoot sightings, especially in southern parts. And that's because people don't report it. So anybody that's listening, please report what you see, what you find. You know, send Josh your GPS coordinates. People need to start making it knowledge. Don't be afraid of being ridiculed. Like he said, it can stay anonymous, but please start documenting, start reporting. There's so many people, like everybody, like I shit you not, everybody I talk to around here has had some kind of experience with something weird in the woods, or some kind of ghost, or a Bigfoot, or a Wendigo. Even the teenagers around here see stuff, but
Yeah.
nobody reports it. You know,
Well,
they just keep it to themselves.
I certainly won't ridicule you, and I certainly won't even share your. You know, you don't have to tell me your name if your name isn't your Instagram handle or Twitter handle. You know, I certainly will keep everything anonymous, and I certainly will respect you. And I know some people are skeptical of the BFRO or don't like the BFRO. Personally, I do like the BFRO. I think they have done a good job. I will say they don't collect latitude and longitude or any coordinates for most of their sightings, which I wish they did.
Yeah.
But they do collect location. It's more just like a narrative location, like, oh, it happened here. They say it in words. And I do have to say that somebody took the time to plot those out. That's where I got this original data that Cliff Barrickman pointed me to.
Yeah.
I believe most of the points I have are based off of BFRO sightings. So I know some people are skeptical of the BFRO, but personally, I think that's also a good place to report sightings.
It is.
I think that of the entire Bigfoot community, they're from the get-go trying to put this stuff in a database. I think it's a good idea. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, people, like you said, I don't know why they would have whatever kind of feelings negative towards BFRO. That they are the forefront of data. You know, they've done the legwork, they've done the collections. So if somebody can do a better job, then go for it. If not, then at least contribute to it. You know, and I wish they did have more GPS locations. Now that I know you exist, Josh, out here doing these maps, because I can't wait to see.
Yeah. So
I want to see you. You know, when these maps come out, I bet you that the parallels and the ley lines that you're talking about, I bet you're going to start seeing bands across America of these sightings.
well, I can say a little preview, like I was saying earlier, from that 33rd parallel map, is that it really makes the content. It really ties in with the hot spot in East Texas, like the Big Thicket. If you listen to a lot of Bigfoot podcasts, you will hear people talk about that area a lot. And Big Thicket, and the Fouke Monster from Beast of Boggy Creek.
Yep.
The classic, you know, that area happens to be very close to the 33rd parallel. So I preview for that map is that area is dense right there on the 33rd parallel. And so that to me was an interesting finding that I'll probably be saying more about when I finish that map.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it. And if you don't mind, I'd like to bring you back on to show it and talk about it.
I'd love to.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. All right.
Thank you.
Josh, is there anything else we need to go over, or can you think this is it's a wrap for this first time on here?
I think that's pretty much all that I have prepared to say, unless you have any more questions for me. I think that was pretty good.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today, but I definitely want to get you back on here, man. As you learn more, and hopefully people start getting more information out there to you. I really want to tell you, I appreciate this work.
Well, thank you so much. Because like I said, it's just kind of a little side project for me. And I was wondering if Bigfoot people would be interested in it because it's not as flashy as like a piece of video or a footprint. You know, it's not as, it's like you have to kind of take a little more time to digest it. So I was hopeful, but cautiously hopeful that anyone would care.
What,
So-
you know, the flashy stuff, that's what people are tired of, honestly. People want data. People want things that they can look at and say, well, this is going on here. And just in my opinion, I love looking at, you know, videos and evidence, but there's so many hoaxes out there. And
Yeah,
this coming from hundreds and hundreds of accounts and eyewitness reports and people that actually cared enough to take the time to give up their location to contact somebody, and you're compiling it all into a map that you can look at and say, okay, this is happening here. This is beyond gee whiz stuff. This is more work than somebody would do to hoax. This is real raw data, and I think it's amazing. I really love it.
well, I appreciate that. You know, I just, like I said, I've been interested in Bigfoot since I was a kid, and I kind of, you know, as the years goes by, you notice there's a community around Bigfoot, and I was like, how can I contribute to this community with my skills? And I thought of this way to do it.
Yeah. Well, you definitely did it. You're doing it, man. I love it. And I thank you so much for
I
coming
really
on.
appreciate that.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Open door invitation. Just shoot me a text or holler at me on Instagram, and within 48 hours, I'm sure I can make enough time for us to talk again. You know what I mean?
Cool. Well, so I've done a couple. I've recorded on a couple podcasts over the past week or so.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm taking a little break of posting maps and stuff, and then I'm gonna let these podcasts come out and see if I get a response, get some new information. So
Yeah. What shows were you on?
let's see. I recorded on one called the Bigfoot Backpacker, which I think is brand new,
Okay.
and one called shoot, what's this one called? Let me look at my DMs. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
The Podcast of Mystery.
Podcast of mystery. Well,
So I recorded on those two, and with you.
if you want to get out there and everybody hear you, holler at Wes Garmer, man. Sasquatch Chronicles. He's so friendly.
I've been thinking about it. I'm like, do I want the amount of DMs I'll get if I go on Sasquatch Chronicles?
Bro,
And
I'm
I was
telling
thinking,
you.
would he have me on because I'm not an experiencer? He pretty much only does experiencers.
Well, I have a feeling he would have you on because you're doing real work. You know, you're doing not that experiences didn't have something real happen. I don't mean that. I'm saying you're doing like real hard work. I should have put that the second one in there. You're doing real hard work. This is cool, and people will like it. Wes, I think, will get a kick out of it. And you know, when he brought me on his show, it helped. You know, my reach grew tenfold.
You went on
Yeah,
what episode? Because I listened to every episode of Sasquatch Chronicles.
Okay, it was episode, I think it's 681.
So kind of recently.
Yeah, it was kind of recently. It was last August, I think. I know the episode was called Foo Fighters Reloaded. And
If it was a members one, I might not have heard it because I'm not a member.
it wasn't a members episode. It was
Oh,
called
well, I'll go back and listen to it.
Yeah, I'm on like the last 20 minutes of that episode, Foo Fighters Reloaded. I think it's 681.
Cool.
He let me come on there and share what experiences that I have had. I've never laid my eyes on a Bigfoot, and he still let me come on the show. So,
Well, you know what? You inspired me. I'm definitely going to email him.
yeah, please email him, man. Holler at
Because
him.
he kind of is first of all, I love Sasquatch Chronicles. He is a great host.
Yes.
And it is kind of in a way, it's the best Bigfoot podcast there is, I think.
Yep.